The Café at Willow Street. Emma Carter stepped off the bus with a canvas bag slung over her shoulder and a suitcase rolling behind her. The air in Windmere smelled of salt and wood smoke, a quiet contrast to the city noise she had escaped. The streets were narrower here, the houses older, and the ocean wasn't far away. She could hear it if she listened carefully. She was tired. Not just in the way long travel makes you tired, but in the deeper, heavier way that settles into her chest. The kind of tired that comes from pretending everything is okay when it's not. Emma had left London after her long-term relationship ended in a silence so loud it rang in her ears. On top of that, she'd lost her job. Downsizing, they called it. But what it felt like was failure. She rented a small cottage on the edge of the village, with ivy creeping up the walls and creaky floorboards. It wasn't much, but it was enough. She made tea, unpacked a few books, and sat near the window for hours, watching the waves from a distance. A week later, she wandered down Willow Street, a narrow lane she hadn't noticed before. Most of the shops were closed or empty, but one building caught her eye. It had dusty windows and a faded wooden sign that read, "The Willow Café." She peered inside. Old wooden chairs were stacked in a corner, and sunlight streamed through cracks in the roof. The place looked forgotten, but not unloved. "Thinking of buying it?" a voice asked behind her. She turned to see a man standing a few feet away. He was tall, with dark hair and kind, quiet eyes. He wore an apron covered in flour. "No," she said quickly. "Just curious." He nodded. "I bake bread in the mornings. My kitchen's just next door." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the empty cafe. "It used to be the heart of the town," he said. "My wife ran it." Emma glanced at him. His voice had softened. "She passed away 2 years ago." "I'm sorry," Emma said gently. He offered a small smile. "I'm Thomas." "Emma." Something about their exchange felt easy, natural. Two people carrying stories they didn't want to tell yet. But maybe, someday, they would. The next day, she passed by again. This time, Thomas waved her in. "Would you like to help me fix it up?" And just like that, the slow process of healing began. Emma showed up the next morning, with sleeves rolled up and a hair tie on her wrist. Thomas had unlocked the cafe door early, and the air inside smelled faintly of old wood, lemon cleaner, and dust. "I brought coffee," she said, handing him a paper cup. He nodded with a quiet smile. "You're brave. Most people would have run after seeing the ceiling." Emma looked up. There were indeed a few holes where time had bitten through the plaster. "I've seen worse," she said. It wasn't true, but she liked the way his smile grew at her words. They started by clearing the furniture, stacking old chairs, wiping down forgotten shelves, and sweeping the creaky wooden floor. Each piece of furniture told a story. Some were carved with initials. Others had scratches and stains that hinted at years of laughter and spilled tea. Thomas told her how his wife, Claire, had once painted the walls a soft green because she said it made people feel calm. Emma listened without interrupting. There was grief in his voice, but also pride. After an hour, he brought out a plate of warm cinnamon rolls. "Fuel," he said simply. Emma sat on the windowsill and took a bite. "These are amazing." "Claire's recipe," he replied, not meeting her eyes. They worked in quiet companionship. No music, no background noise. Just the sound of sweeping, the creak of the old boards, and the occasional seagull outside. Later, they found a box of old photographs and postcards in the back room. Emma sat cross-legged on the floor, sorting through them. "This one's beautiful," she said, holding up a black and white photo of the cafe bustling with people. Thomas knelt beside her. That was our first anniversary event. Free tea and biscuits for everyone. Emma looked at him. You really loved her? He didn't answer right away. Yes, and I still do, but the house is too quiet now. The cafe too, and I think maybe she'd want it to come alive again. Emma didn't know what to say, so she nodded. Sometimes silence was enough. That evening, as they locked up, Thomas turned to her. You don't have to come every day. I want to, Emma said. She surprised herself with how much she meant it. The next 3 months passed quietly, like pages turning in a well-loved book. Every morning, Emma arrived with paint on her clothes and new ideas in her sketchbook. Thomas baked fresh bread and scones, the cafe slowly filling with the scent of cinnamon, butter, and warmth. The walls were painted a soft green again. Emma's idea, though she didn't know Claire had chosen the same color years ago. It feels like peace, she had said. They worked together like they had always known how. Emma designed a new logo for the cafe, a willow tree leaning over a teacup. Thomas added a chalkboard menu with simple things: tea, pastries, homemade soup. It wasn't fancy, but it felt real. There were moments when grief visited them like an old friend. When Thomas found Claire's old teacups and sat with them quietly. Or when Emma stumbled on an old email from her ex and felt her chest tighten. But instead of pushing those moments away, they let them pass like waves. On the morning of the grand reopening, Emma stood outside in a simple blue dress, smoothing imaginary wrinkles from her skirt. She was nervous, though she wasn't sure why. You okay? Thomas asked, appearing beside her with 2 mugs of tea. She nodded. I don't know why I feel like crying. He smiled. Because this matters. They opened the doors together. The first customer was an elderly woman with a walking stick. She looked around with watery eyes and said, It smells like home. More people came, neighbors, families, travelers passing through. Laughter returned to the cafe. The chairs were filled again, the walls echoing with conversation and clinking cups. Emma found herself behind the counter, pouring tea and smiling without thinking. She felt lighter. She hadn't realized how heavy her heart had been until it lifted. That evening, after the last customer left, Thomas turned off the lights and lit a candle on one of the tables. To Claire, he said softly. Emma raised her cup. To second chances. He looked at her, eyes kind and steady. I think she'd like you. Emma smiled. I think I would have liked her too. They sat in silence, candlelight flickering between them, the sound of the sea drifting in through the open window. The cafe was alive again, so were they. And though nothing had been promised, something new had quietly begun.